y'all. Welcome to another episode of the Matt Curran Show. We're past the election now, doing a deep dive into something that's near and dear to my heart, which is the pro-life movement and trying to secure life for the innocent, for the unborn. And today I've got a co-host with me. You might know her, Miss Gabriela from Coast to Coast Conversations. She's heavily involved in the life issue, especially in Nevada. So we want to welcome her, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the Nevada pro-life policies going on out that way. Hey, Gabrielle, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Matt, for having me. Of course, it's post-election. The moment that so many Americans were waiting for, and now we're sitting here, and we're going to continue to talk about issues, right, and things that are happening. And so, thank you for having me on today to speak about this particular issue. Of course.
Yes, and I would say the pro-life movement is sort of just as a whole. Okay, on one hand, we got President Trump that won. We've got some, pro-life policy champions elected, but then these ballot initiatives, it's just almost demoralizing. It looks like it passed in Nevada. Um, Tell us about it. Why did it pass? What was the percentage of those passing? What were you hearing on the ground leading up to it?
Yeah, I mean, we saw a lot of races that were very neck and neck. This was not one of them. So, just to talk a little bit so people really understand what we're talking about, in Nevada, we actually had a question number 6, that was asking us if we basically wanted to extend abortions to late term, which in the language extends out to full term, a 9-month process. So imagine here in Nevada, we're already protected, women are already protected to have abortions up to 6 months. Now, I personally do not think that 6 months is I personally don't believe in any abortion, right? But let's just leave it there. Let's just leave it there. So my thought process was there's already abortion up to 6 months. Nevada has to at least protect babies up to 9 months. Come on, you know. Um, but
Mm.
Matt, you asked about percentages. And so what it's a huge number. So it was like 640,000 people said, yes, we want to be able to go to a full term abortion. And only like
Mm.
383,000. I don't know the exact numbers. I would have to go back to look at them. But it was that much of a difference where it was like 600,000 to 300,000. And it was like, wow, I was shocked. I was like, we're not even close to like, being able to reach the same amount of numbers. So that shocked me. But I will say the way that the question was worded could really confuse people. And that's my biggest issue, Matt, is when we word these questions, are people really understanding what they're asking? Because I remember voting for the first time, not even knowing that there was questions or what they meant or anything, and just guessing. Like, this kind of sounds like something I would support, So the way it was worded really bothered me because it said it was protecting women's rights. And I was like, this is not about protecting women's rights. This is about a different topic, right? Like a women's rights topic would be completely different. So the way that they worded it, I really believe people got confused. So but it's not there yet, Matt. We still have 2 years to be able to really put it into law. So that's kind of like the little update on what happened here in Nevada with question number 6.
Yeah, I would say the Nevada thing, you brought it up from 6 months to 9 months. Some of these other ballot initiatives I was taking a look at, like in Missouri, it passed, but they had a thing that said up to viability. Obviously, you could be viable up to 6 months. Colorado viability, Arizona viability, Florida, South Dakota, Nebraska, they didn't pass at all. But Nevada, there's not even a viability standard, which for those of you who understand abortion law prior to Roe versus Wade, you had Planned Parenthood v. Casey in the 1990s that set a viability standard nationwide. So we didn't have 9 months abortion at all. So this is one of the fallouts of Roe versus Wade is states can ban it, but states can do what Nevada did and go up to 9 months. Do you think people in Nevada understood when they saw the language on the ballot, like you were saying, like that it was gonna end up being 9 month abortions? Like you can
Well,
have it all the way up to 9 months.
I don't believe people truly understand what that question meant. And I feel like I got involved a little bit later on this question. So I didn't get to feel what really Nevadans thought about it. But I will say, not many people knew what this question was. And even when I read it, when I first read it, it was like, oh, this does not sound like what it's really going to happen. And so I did also get to be out there on election day at UNLV, which is our university here in Las Vegas. And so universities are very targeted by the Democratic parties because they're younger
Mm.
kids, they're in college, and literally everyone that was going into these places to vote, there was the Kamala Harris campaign, there was Planned Parenthood there, and they were handing out condoms and they were handing out donuts so you
Mm.
can vote for these questions for them. They were handing out stickers that said "Hot Girls Vote," um, with no American flag or anything. Just like
Mm.
even men were wearing these shirts like "Hot Girls Vote," and then they had like little pins that said like "Just effing vote," and I'm like, don't just vote, don't just effing vote, please know what you're voting for, So
Mm.
no, I do not believe that people are well informed, and so because they're being told to just effing vote for these things, right? And so I believe we could do better with educating people on these questions.
Is it your understanding too? Because this is what I believe. From when Roe versus Wade was overturned, 2022 midterms definitely hurt the Republicans. People outlash. I think it's settled in, especially since Trump won Nevada, that people know it's a state issue now. Okay, so we've at least changed people's mind, or I won't say changed it, but we now have people understanding, voters understanding that this is a state issue, so they can vote federally one way and state another way. How do we continue to then change minds to be more pro-life and be more engaged in protecting life?
So here in Nevada, we actually have up to 6 days after the election to be able to turn in votes and count votes. So uh, it's such thing as curing
That's
ballots, right?
crazy.
Right. And so if you were looking at the map and you were like, why isn't Nevada reporting anything yet? It's because what happened was after the election, the Democrats and the Republicans both had 6 days to cure ballots. And the more people, the bigger army you had, the more you can truly do here to vote or get people into those seats, which I thought was wild because your election is still not even over. And if whatever party has more people curing ballots, they're going to take over. So what happened in Nevada was really people were when I was calling them to cure ballots, because it was literally party versus party. I was talking to
Mm-hmm.
people, and all they cared about was Trump is in. I don't care anymore. Like the rest of it,
Oh,
I don't care about anyone else winning, just Trump. So to them, I believe what happened, Matt, was they cared about the economy. They cared about being able to take care of their families and be able to afford food and all that and gas and all that before they cared about women's rights and anything else. Because yes, it's not that they don't care, but they want to be able to feed their family. That's their number one concern. So a lot of people were saying, hey, you know what? Trump already won the presidency. We don't even care about anything else. So,
it's
that's
so
when
funny you say that because you look at states around the country like Wisconsin and Michigan that the Republicans lost those Senate seats, and you had way less votes in just the United States Senate race in general than presidency. And you see that even in Dave McCormick's race in Pennsylvania. Republicans need to fill out the entire ballot. Don't just vote for president. I used to work as an election judge in North Carolina um, many, many years ago in college. And unfortunately, people bring their ballot to you like, "Hey, where do I put this?" And you'll just see it's just blank. They just wanted to vote for president. It's
yes.
very fascinating. So what you say is real. It's just educating and motivating people to care about the life issue. So where do pro lifers go from here as far as motivating the outside legislation? Okay, we vote, whatever, it's done. How do we motivate and get people to understand the pro life position on things?
Yeah, really, education, I believe, is the most important. I think we both I mean, anyone has seen anything like, oh, if they're forcing me to do it, then I'm probably going to come against it, right? That rebellious thing that people have. And so,
Mm-hmm.
what about if we educate people? What about if we can pour into our our education system when it comes to these things, right? So there's a lot of amazing people that I love that actually go out there and fight about abortion. And Matt, if you can actually show this video, it's gonna kind of prove some points, because what we saw is a lot of misinformation. But if we can just put right information out there and truly educate people, they'll really understand the process of abortion. So if you can play that, that would be amazing.
Sure, I'll play the video from Senator Lankford of Oklahoma.
Ms. Hackler, just to clarify on this, are there any states where women face prosecution for having an abortion?
No.
Are there any states that criminalize miscarriage
No.
or the care for for a miscarriage?
No.
Are there any states that criminalize removing an ectopic pregnancy?
No.
Are there any states that prohibit life-saving care for the mother?
No.
Are there any states where women have to be actively dying for a doctor to be able to act for her care?
No.
There's been a lot of rhetoric in this that I'm concerned pushes people away from getting access to health care. Vice President Harris, in a speech recently, said that women were being arrested and facing prosecution for experiencing miscarriages. Ms. Hackler, do you know of a single instance where a woman has been arrested for having a miscarriage or getting health care for that?
No. Treatment for miscarriage is allowed under the law, and there have been instances where I think that one example of that that's been pointed to is misleading, because the woman, I think she was in Ohio, the charges against her were not abortion related, and so it's misleading to use that as an example.
It's not only misleading, but it scares women away from getting access to health care. And it leads women to not go get health care treatment when they desperately need it.
Yeah, that's crazy, the misinformation from the left.
Yes, the misinformation. So if we can bring correct information instead of using women as political pawns and saying, "Hey, we're going to scare them, we're going to pour fear into them, and we're going to help make them think that if they have a miscarriage, they're going to get in trouble for that. That if they can only get help if they're like dying right then and there, or ectopic pregnancy, whatever that thing might be." The left side spread a lot of misinformation in order to get these votes. But the scary part about that, Matt, is that while they were fighting for women's rights, they were putting us in danger, because they were telling us, you can't go to the doctor of this, you can't go to. Imagine a woman who is having a miscarriage and now she's scared to go to the doctor because she thinks she's going to get in trouble for that, because of all the lies of the misinformation. So better information, having clarity, being transparent with women about what really women's rights or health is, right? Instead of pouring fear into women.
Do you think that there are that there are women who refuse to go out and get treatment for miscarriages because of this misinformation? And if you have, please share any stories that you've heard of, because I do see how some people would view it that way, but to me, it's just common sense.
Right, right. No, I think that for the most cases, I don't know any particular case, but I will share this story. I actually had went to an event and I spoke to people about that particular question we spoke about earlier, coming against abortion for late term. And she is actually a Christian believer. And she said that she was talking to her friend and she was telling her friend that she's against abortion. And her friend tells her, well, me too, but I'm scared to not be able to go to the doctor if I go through a miscarriage. So we're not protected during miscarriages. And that's scary, because that's not true. And if a woman does have a miscarriage, you're able to go to the doctor and be taken care of. But women really believe this. And I know that is because of what we hear in society, the media, social media, and these influencers that we see on social media.
That's a very good prime example. And I was really more asking because as a guy, I don't sit around with other guys to talk about miscarriage stuff. My wife and I unfortunately went through one. But no, that's an example because you have the experience of being a woman and talking to other ladies to have that intimate conversation that I'm not able to have. Well, why do women, the big question, why do women in general feel the need to have to get abortions? Even if it's at like 6, 7, 8, 9 months, like what goes through somebody's mind that at the 6 month, seventh, eighth, ninth month that they're like, hey, now's the time to get it when they could have had it way earlier.
Yeah, that could be different reasons. A lot of the times we see that it could be maybe they split up from their the person they were with, right? Maybe
Hmm.
it could be possible mental health issues. We have seen that people, women, when especially when they're pregnant, they might go through depression. They might go through certain things, and these women, what they need is actual help. They need not to get rid of the problem, right? But or what we think is a problem, but to really get to the root cause of why we feel the way we do. And so that's what I believe. I believe a lot of it is from emotional feelings, what we're hearing out there. Maybe sometimes we think like we might not be able to take care of this baby. There might not be a lot of help out there. So it could be a lot of different things, Matt, but I personally believe it is a very, very deep spiritual war. I've seen videos where I literally have seen, I wish I would have showed you this video, but this guy wants to get the first successful surgery to have a women's uterus to then be able to grow a baby and have the first abortion. And I'm like, why would you want to go through all that to create a baby and then have an abortion? Right. So I do believe that also being like on certain social media platforms, listening to specific people could really hurt you. So you have to be really careful with who you're listening to and what you're learning from certain people. So that's really, really important.
I agree, and the pro life movement too. We need to do a better job explaining these things out to people, getting resources out to people. There's a lot of maternity homes, pregnancy centers around the country that can help folks. One of the things I like to talk to folks about, like when they are considering abortion or whatever, that the medical community doesn't tell you. When you get an abortion, it increases your chance of breast cancer by 50%. That umbilical cord can get infected and it's naturally attached to your breast and uh, like from the inside, right? So there's a lot of misinformation on the medical side that the pro-abortion machine doesn't tell you. You could go into depression afterwards. There's healing centers for those who had abortions who regret their abortions. Um, Sort of pivoting to the last thing, though, how did you get involved in the pro-life movement in Nevada? What's your story?
Yeah, so I always had a like a burning desire to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. And so we hear a lot about um, protecting our rights, and we hear a lot about equal rights, and we hear a lot about the Constitution, right? And so I felt like, how could I not be involved in such a movement after having 4 children and maybe even seeing babies in the NICU and all that? How beautiful it is that there are babies, but they need us, right? I mean, my babies needed me. They're not just born and then they take care of themselves, right? You need to take care of the babies. And so
Mm-hmm.
to think about it, we talk about, oh, the right to life, the right to the pursuit of happiness, the right to, okay, but what about the right to life, right? How come we don't focus in on that? The right to life. Okay, so what life, right? And then we have battles about that. So then I was like, this is crazy. So literally, Matt, I would sit there and watch these videos of debates and just be like, why are we having these fights? Then I started realizing, like, people are caring more for animals than babies. People are treating like pets even better than babies sometimes, and that drove me wild. And then I was like, okay, like I just started like watching more videos, and I got really, really interested. And then the door opened for me with this question 6. And I was like, okay, I love talking about all these things and like the economy, inflation, business. But what I really found a passion for was for those who could not be heard, which are, the babies. And so I could not fathom the thought that Nevada would allow abortions up to the 9 month. That's just crazy to me. I just knew that I had to do something about it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I knew that we had a slim chance because I understand that I live in Las Vegas, which is called Sin City, and so women. I mean, this is the place that has the most like AIDS or like sexual transmitted diseases and all that. So we know that the sexual scene here is absolutely insane, right? So I just thought like we have to do something about this. We cannot become one of those states where it's okay to do this and to protect my children as well. From these laws that can truly hurt us in the future. So that's really what like drove me to want to do this. And what really like sold me on it was just because I felt like it was a calling from God. I felt like God was calling me to do this and to really just raise my voice. A lot of people like to hear this, but not a lot of people are willing to talk about it. I'm bold and I'm willing to talk about it. So I said, why not? Let me just do it. And I really don't care what people have to say about it. So I'm like, let me just use my voice for it. And finally, just to wrap it all up, I heard this thing and it says, women's rights begin in the womb. And I thought that was so powerful because just because we cannot hear these women in the wombs, it doesn't mean that they don't have rights, right? And so I believe that the woman is a lady. The lady is a teenager. The teenager goes all the way back to that little tiny cell that connected just like me and you did. And so I believe in life. I believe that if we kill the life, then what are we? I could have been killed. You could have been killed. But no, we're going to sit here and we're going to fight and we're going to do whatever it takes in these next 2 years to make sure that we fight for those babies that are not able to be heard.
That is very powerful. And yes, my favorite thing from any debate, if you remember, vice presidential debate, Paul Ryan looked right at Joe Biden in 2012 and said they had a kid, and when they went to look at him on the sonogram, they named him Bean because at 5 weeks he was in the shape of a bean, and you could see they feel pain early on. They've got fingers and toes. How anyone would say it's not life? It's not just a clump of cells, which the left has backed off that argument that it's just a clump of cells now. Now it's all about shed your abortion. They've gone totally extreme. But folks, that concludes our show today on the Matt Kern Show. Gabrielle, thank you for joining us to talk about the life issue, and in particular in Nevada.
Thank you for having me. I love what you're doing, Matt. And so I'm just honored to be here today.